Welcome, where we are rooted in spirit. We transmit only what is coherent. We mirror only what is true.
Where we get real, get rooted, and we stay free. Welcome to Rooted in Spirit.
Hi, everyone. And today we have a very special guest. Her name is Lauren Messmer. She's a facilitator, teacher, and ceremonialist, and she supports people in connecting with their own inner healer and infinite power through frequency, connection, and quantum energy. Her business is called Mood Medicine, and she works with people all over the globe in person and online. So, welcome, Lauren.
Welcome
Hi, welcome.
home.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
So great to have you here. And yeah, so would love to hear more about your journey and whatever you want to share in terms of your awakening and the medicines that have helped you along the way. Please share with us.
And just for, not a spoiler alert, I'm truly interested in the plant medicine part of it because I know our journey is very similar with, doing the shadow work and inner child healing. I'm excited about hearing about your plant medicine journey.
Nice. Perfect. Well, first of all, I'd love thank you again for having me, and I respect and really love both of you guys. So, thank you for also mirroring back love to me. My journey in spirituality, well, I mean, speaking since we are talking about medicines in general, kind of using it to wake up. The first time I did mushrooms, I was 13, and I grew up in a small town in Northern California. And so we did a lot of kind of romping around the hills and doing different things. And I never picked my own mushrooms, but they came around often every October when it was time, the harvest. So I can't say I was doing it in any sort of real conscious way. We were taking it at 13. However, definitely it was consciousness building. And it's always hard to, when I think about it, to think like, well, what would my brain like? What would my life be like if I hadn't done mushrooms at 13, right?
Mm, that's good.
so so I can't necessarily like speak as a part so specifically about what these plants did for me as I was growing and developing, because it was just part of my journey, like like someone grows up in a specific area of the world, or it was just part of my culture. So, but I will say that when I was in those ceremonies, I often did connect deeply into the earth and felt my connection with the earth. And
Mhm.
I believe that that connection is one of the earth, and I guess the greater collective. Like, you feel when you do plant medicines, you feel often like you can sense a different interconnectedness with yourself and others around you, and the earth and such. And so I feel that that just that of having that at such a young age and connecting in through these plants definitely shifted my understanding of who I am on the planet,
Okay.
as a like my pinpoint on the planet, I guess you could
Okay.
speak.
Okay. Yeah, for
Yeah.
me, it was, I'm not gonna say my age or nothing, but it was pretty much midpoint of my life. I never thought about it, didn't even know that it exists outside of cannabis. That was plant medicine used to help expand your consciousness or just get you to see you without those masks and labels and your trauma, all those distractions. For me, plant medicine takes all that away for you. And I know everybody have their own experience with it, but it dropped all my guards down and it blew me wide open with that. So, Matriya, what about you? What was your experience with it?
I was a bit of a late bloomer, so I
Mhm.
definitely didn't do anything until I was like 19. I'm thinking about my first kind of experience with psychedelics was perhaps LSD, and I was in my 20s, and it was a challenging experience. It was not a pleasant experience for me at all. So I didn't really like LSD. Later, I explored mushrooms and cannabis as well. But I think the sort of the pivotal experience for me with psilocybin was when myself and two friends decided to do a ceremony amongst us, and we had this intention to really give back to Mother Earth. And my friend, who was still learning about doses, didn't really
Oh.
know exactly how much she had put in the tea blend. And I trusted her, but I think it was probably a bit more than we realized. And we went on to a very, very deep journey.
Mm.
And I guess I was in my 40s when that happened.
Okay.
And in that journey, I started having visions like I don't normally see, like you do. Both you and Lauren are more visionary, but I had these visions, and as the medicine came on, I started to see my friends as like these ancient medicine women. They had like this kind of
Mm.
colored dust. One was yellow dust and and dreads, and the other one was green dust. And I was like, wow, like we're all like these medicine women. And one of the friends kind of got freaked out by the whole thing, and she decided she wanted to go home. We tried to convince her it's not a good idea to try to go and get a taxi. Like this isn't, but she did what she had to do. So it was just left with me and my other friend, and it was really, really powerful. And that was my initiation experience, where I was told by the ongos, by the mushrooms, that it's time for you to facilitate these ceremonies, which I never had that plan. So it was really quite profound, and I journeyed deep into the earth, and it was an incredible, incredible experience that changed my life. It was life changing. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's what happened for me.
Wow.
Mhm.
So I guess I would ask you, Lauren, if you had to choose, what would be your medicine, your go-to medicine that helps you expand or open up more? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a close, there's a tie a little bit,
Okay.
but it would be mushrooms and definitely Bufo. Bufo wins. Like I said, I worked with mushrooms since I was 13, and it's only been about 5 years and I worked after that. I worked deeply with other medicines, but like I was trained to support ceremonies of ayahuasca and like to really to work with that medicine. And then I found Bufo, and Bufo just, it's for on so many levels, it is an incredible and beautiful and amazing medicine. Like mushrooms and ayahuasca are great as well. And they're like, 4.5, 5 hour ceremonies. So when you're in it, you're really like working through things. It's just like kind of being in life where anything can be thrown to you in ways. I mean, I've had largely really pleasant and wonderful ceremonies, but of course, you get those big ones where you're really trying to shift. And it wasn't until later in life that I really learned how to work with different medicines to shift any consciousness or behaviors within myself. So, in those ceremonies, you're in it a little deeper. Whereas Bufo, it's literally 15 to 40 minutes long, and it's like getting an software upgrade. And it doesn't matter if you have a little of it or you do a lot of it, if you don't feel a thing or if you feel a lot of things or you just get blasted out. There is something that gets shifted and rerouted with you in your brain that I call it a timeline jump. It is absolutely a timeline jump. So um
Wow.
yeah,
So in
Wow.
that,
that's what it
because
is.
I've never done Bufo, or, I'm interested in it, but I've never done it. Is there a time where you have to purge? Do you purge during Bufo, or is that before, after, or during?
Some people do. I personally do almost every time I sit with the medicine. I think for me, it's like one of those things where you just get like being on a roller coaster where you're like, woo, the energy goes so fast that it's like you kind of just like lose all gravity in general. Like even with that's why I feel like it always happens to me. But the majority of the people do not throw up. And if they do, often it's related to having eaten before or something. It's not like with ayahuasca where it is, and potentially it is also purging, but I feel like more with ayahuasca is when you're like purging because you're purging
Mhm.
emotions, you're purging DNA patterns, like you're purging big things, and you usually know what it is that you're purging in that moment too. You'll have a thought of something, and then that thought's like, nope, we're
Yeah.
clearing that thought out, you know. And again, because it's such a short period of time, you're not focused on one thought at all,
Mhm.
pretty much during the time your experience with the Bufo.
Wow. So Lauren, how did Bufo first find you, and what shifted in you the moment you knew this was going to be part of your medicine path?
Yeah, it's when it was like 5 years ago, and I was in a different ceremony, and I was in line with this guy, and this guy he felt really familiar to me, and I just asked him, I was like, "Hey, do I know you?"
Mhm.
And he was like, "No." And then the next day I was at a spot, and he was there, and he was serving medicine, and I asked what it was, and they told me what it was, and I was really surprised that I hadn't ever that I hadn't ever found, or I hadn't heard of it before. So I was pretty curious, and I asked him about it. I asked him if I could do it with him, and he said yeah. And so we met up a little bit before, we talked about it, and I shared my experiences with medicines and what I'd been learning in my previous 3 years of of supporting people in ceremonies. And he came to my apartment, and he served the medicine. And to be honest, it was shocking. It was like the session was huge, it was overwhelming. It was confusing. It was also speaking to me in a really different way than I'd ever been spoken to by any being, any plant, any medicine whatsoever. Um, and after that experience, I began to kind of it I felt there was an agreement between myself and the medicine, and I began to really focus and work with it. I put it on my altar. I began to kind of connect more with it on a smaller level, not going so deep, but just kind of getting familiar with the medicine itself, with its personality, with its spirit, and yeah, it was like it definitely was moving my spirit differently than other medicines. It changed something inside of me that I could not at all say what it was that had shifted in me in that day, but that now after 5 years of working with it, I've just like seen all the ways that shifts my life and all the ways that it shifts other people's lives. That it's like I honestly feel like everybody should do this medicine. I know we all come out of like journeys and we're like everybody should do this, but like really I feel this about this medicine. And then also I recognize that also not everybody should do the medicine. You
Right.
know, there's a time and a place for it and stuff, but the way that it takes away, it's basically working with the neurons, your neuroplasticity, which also the other medicines are, but for whatever reason Bufo is doing it more effectively, I think. Whereas like you'll be months afterwards in a scenario, let's say with your mom, and she says something, and you know you would normally respond to her in this way, and randomly your mouth opens and a whole different thing comes out. The more healthy, the healthier, more healed version of what you would have said comes out. And it's like I just know every time that happens that that's the Bufo working in me.
Okay.
That's beautiful. For people that don't know what Bufo is, where does it come from? And yeah, because I just realized there's people that are watching
Yeah.
this show that, what is this medicine? What are they talking about? Where does it come from? You know?
Yeah, it's the Sonoran Desert toad, and it's the Bufo virus, and they have them. It's in the United States, in the southern desert of the United States. We have in California, Arizona, so all the way up to Colorado. I think the one in Colorado is the Colorado River toad, which has similar components. It's not the exact one. Um, and the toads live underground most of the year. They'll come out when it starts raining, and they come out at night. So in order to gather the medicine, you have to go out, meet the toads, and then you hold them and you squeeze their like their venom, which is their protection. So it's also very important that you understand where your medicine comes from, because where I get my medicine, lovely harvested. They didn't kill the, a lot of times they'll over milk the toads and then put them out into back into the wild, but then they can't protect themselves. So it's like you want to know, and that for that reason too, there's a lot of synthetic Bufo, which is they could just call the 5-MeO-3 DMT, and that's the synthetic version. And they say it works just as well. I like to work with the actual toad medicine, as long as I know that it's been collected in a nice way and in a sustainable way. Another way people will keep toads at their house and just like milk them is it's just,
Mm.
So yeah, so that's where it comes from. And actually, I asked under hypnosis once. I asked where it came from, and they told me it came from the aliens, from the stars. So
Mm.
yeah, I honestly do believe that because this medicine didn't even come into like consciousness until like the 60s, and really just now it's starting to really gather kind of this velocity. And I think it's because, in order for us to connect with other galaxies, extraterrestrials, or other beings, we have to raise our frequency. And I really feel like this medicine is helping to raise our frequency on the earth so that we can connect more with the expansiveness even just within ourselves,
Okay.
honestly.
Okay. Just like for me, ayahuasca, the spirit of ayahuasca came to me in a female, feminine, loving, grandmother type of energy. That's how I view it. And even, doing ayahuasca outside of Peru, it came to me as Pachamama, still as a female energy, loving, nurturing. What does Bufo How do you interpret it? Do you interpret it as feminine or masculine or no gender? How do you interpret the energy?
I personally feel like it's feminine, but
Okay.
also a lot of people say it's masculine, one, because especially like in Spanish, it ends with an O, so it's a masculine word. So I think that makes people think masculine. I also think the medicine could be masculine served by a particular person, or perhaps, so maybe even I would say it's gender neutral. It's a
Okay.
they.
Okay.
Bufo's a they.
Okay. Maitreya, how do you interpret it? Have you
That's what I
done
was going to
so
ask too.
before?
Yes, I have
Okay.
3 times I've done Bufo, and each time was very different.
Okay.
Each time I did it, big shifts happened in my life. Um, there, yeah, it's hard to put into words what the experience is. It's really, I guess, for lack of vocabulary or lack of really explaining what is the inexplicable, it's like you're connecting with this field of oneness, and you become you sort of melt into that field, and you become one with oneness, and God is in you, and you are God, and it's like nothing I've ever experienced before. And so yes, things shift. Sometimes things can completely fall apart. And the thing about Bufo is it kind of shakes away everything that is no longer in resonance with you. Like it's sort of like you move into a higher octave, and therefore, whatever isn't at that octave anymore, it just kind of falls away. And you're like, shit, what's happening? My whole life is falling apart. And it can take weeks, months. The last time I did Bufo was almost, I don't know, it was about 6 months ago. And I can still see the effects of that last session I did, and how much my life has changed and how my consciousness has changed. Like Lauren was saying, I just don't respond to situations like I might have before, taking things personally or feeling a need to get defensive or any of that. I feel like much more neutral in my life, and not in a way of coldness, like I still feel, but in a way of like really healthy detachment.
Okay.
And I feel like definitely Bufo has been a part of the shift in my consciousness for sure. Yeah, I'm sure it has.
For someone who's never had that experience, can y'all just walk me through one of your ceremonies, like from start to finish? Was there any anxiety? Was there any fear before you took off? Because that's definitely you having to surrender. And I struggle sometime with surrendering. I go in with the intention to surrender, but soon as it's time for you to say, okay, I'm surrendering, I try to latch on. So did any of you guys experience that during your ceremonies?
Well, yes, and I want to just mention something that's related but to what she said and to this topic, which is that part of the reason why it's so hard to explain is because the things that you experience don't happen in words, they happen in frequency. And so that's
Okay.
exactly what you were saying about like it's like speaking the language of the universe of that frequency. And so that's also like the it's whether you surrender to that frequency or if you're fighting it, or yeah, whatever. It's very normal. I'll just say that in my experience it's very normal for people to not be able to let go or to, because we're also in a highly vigilant moment in the earth where we do feel like we have to be watching out for our own safety so often. So definitely making sure when you do the medicine that you do it with somebody that you already feel safe with or that their process is safe, because that's just one more layer of being able to let go that will allow you to kind of go in and surrender, so to speak. But also again, if you don't surrender, it's also part of the process. That's information, like that's also totally okay and on purpose. And yeah. So as far as the ceremony itself, um, you basically some people, everybody, there's not like one ceremony for the Bufo. This is also another thing that is a little bit of like urban legends about whether there's like a ceremony connected to a tribe. There are a few tribes that have said yes, they had practices, but it's kind of still vague. And I even went and worked with some of the tribes that said that they were supposed to be the ones that had it in their lineage, and it wasn't true. They told us it wasn't true. Someone else had made up that lie and kind of put it out there. But
Okay.
anyway, so that means that people do it however it's their medicine, right? When they connect with it. It's one way that I really like it. So, some people will serve you standing up, some people serve you in a big group. The way that I feel most comfortable is one on one. So just sitting in a private space, and the practitioner will open up the space and, call in protections and guides, hopefully, or some sort of whatever opening they do. That's an important piece. We're opening a portal to step in and work with this medicine. We're asking permission from the medicine. And then the bufo is inhaled through a pipe, and so it's held up, and the person receiving it will take a long, slow breath and fill their belly and their lungs as much as they can and as slowly as possible. And then they hold on to it when they can't breathe anymore, and they hold on to it, and then they slowly let it out. And by then the medicine's kind of coming on. And as the medicine's coming on, maybe the practitioner is talking or playing music or just being quiet. There's lots of different styles. Typically, the person will lay down, then be guided lay down, and then they kind of go inward, and then from there it's really can be anything. People
Okay.
can freak out because it's a very overwhelming feeling sometimes for people, like they have to almost like shake out of their bodies. That's also energy moving. I've had people just lay there perfectly still, like you don't even know, then there's people that make sounds, that move. One time I saw this girl that did 40 minutes of somersaults and basically just
Oh.
toned the whole time. Yeah, so I was supporting in that with just like helping her to not um, hit her head, basically, so yeah, it comes out in so many different ways, and it's just reflective, I think, of what that person's going through and where their nervous system is at. And about 15 minutes max, really 40, the person's in the medicine, and then you wake up and come back, and pretty quickly you're right back and feeling sober and grounded, which is also really nice about this medicine. Afterwards, in the days and weeks afterwards, you might be tired because you're literally like rewiring and reshifting things within you. But the actual medicine really doesn't leave you like hungover, so to speak, or anything like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, was there anything I missed that was
Hmm.
worth mentioning, Maitreya?
No, I mean, that's been my experience. That's what I've liked about Bufo is that there isn't like these side effects where whenever I do psilocybin, I feel really drained the next day, like almost like feel like a slight hangover feeling. And sometimes I feel very dehydrated. I feel, yeah, I feel it has an impact on my body.
Okay.
Whereas with Bufo, I didn't feel any of those side effects. Like I felt quite all right, maybe tiny bit tired, but nothing out of the ordinary. And I really like that about Bufo. But I'm wondering, is there ever in your opinion, do you think there's someone who shouldn't take Bufo? Like, or is there a particular profile of people that it wouldn't be suitable for people to do Bufo?
Yeah, anyone who's on taking MAOIs, so a lot of the antidepressants, need to have like at least a month, and I would say a year off of those would be safe. That is absolutely important because that's something that could kill somebody. So you want to make sure that you are very truthful with your practitioner of what you're taking. SSRIs, which are more like kind of anti-anxiety medicines, those are okay, but they often can block the receptors. So then it's kind of like a waste of, I mean, it still won't waste the medicine, but it's just like not, it wouldn't be the smartest thing to do really for yourself. People who have had seizures, have a history of seizures, that would be something I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Maybe there's practitioners that are experienced enough with that that would feel comfortable with that. So I don't know. And again, always trust your own instincts and do your own research, and also be very proactive in your questioning about this with the people that you work with. And then also, I would say if your nervous system's really shot, like if you're just like your life is like really overwhelming and really shot, it's going to be very shocking to go into something that's that much of a like shock to your body. Um, I've seen people work with microdoses of it, not necessarily microdoses, but smaller doses where maybe you don't even enter any sort of like other feeling like you've left, or you just kind of get a little body high. And that's really effective for people with who maybe wouldn't be appropriate for a big dose, because it just helps ease. It's not so much of a shock to your system, but the benefits, I still like I have seen people's lives literally change from just a small dose of Bufo. So it doesn't matter what you take or what you experience, it's going to work anyways. I'd be cautious with some of the other things, like people do it. I don't know, but there are people who specialize in working with people who are like addicted to crystal or different drugs or heavy
Okay.
alcohol. There's people that do work with Bufo with that. But I would also, if you're in that situation, be very careful with who you work with, because yeah, it's just safety first for everyone. So
Well,
I
I have a
think that's
question that you guys can answer for me. For me, ayahuasca was, more in my consciousness, but I felt a lot of it in my body in different areas. And I'm assuming those are just areas that I was holding trauma or emotions that, or stuck energy. So I purge the example you gave, when you're purging something out. It's some type of emotion or trauma. So, with that, I purged with ayahuasca. So I felt majority of it in my body, but I do remember times where my subconscious and conscious was being rewired, with that.
mhm.
So would you recommend or say that Bufo is more conscious based, mental versus physical body?
Yes, I think so. Because it doesn't even really enter your body. It doesn't
Okay.
mean you can't have effects like that. And I had one person that had some very intense physical feelings from the experience. But no, it doesn't, and that's why also for Bufo you don't have to do an intense dieta. Like you don't have to pay attention to what you eat so much before anything because it doesn't even really go into your blood. It's literally going directly to your brain.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
it's so short that you just don't even like, I don't even know. Yeah. So, yeah.
I've never experienced purging with Bufo. I've gotten a little bit nauseous,
Mhm.
but I've always followed the protocol to do fasting so many hours before, and then I just don't really have any problem. Definitely, I agree. It feels like it's definitely just going straight to the consciousness and to the monad, the God within us. It feels like it's like activating uh that frequency. It's a very feels like a very quantum medicine to me. It really
Absolutely.
activates the multidimensionality of who we are and traveling to other galaxies, dimensions. All of these things sort of happen simultaneously when you're in the medicine. So it feels very galactic for me.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you
Again,
think
it came
those
from
that's
within.
more highly sensitive will experience it more strong versus someone who isn't highly sensitive? Do you think there's a
I
difference?
don't really think so. What I've kind of noticed is it's just going to get you where it's going to get you. Because, like, I've had, people where I've served them very small doses and they've, like, been gone literally 40 minutes
Okay.
on some of the smallest doses. And the other people that take, like, a lot of it and then just they can't feel it. And it's not, and some of those people have told me, like, I'm very sensitive, but it's almost like, it's such a different experience. It's more the key is how well can you release and let go of control. I think that's really the main detector of how deep. Oh, although I don't want to like gaslight anyone that has that experience and feels like they're really letting go too. It's just whatever. I think it's through my work with Bufo. I would say that's one of the biggest lessons that I've internalized is that everything's on purpose,
Mm,
like everything. So if you take it, it didn't affect you that much, it's on purpose. There's a reason why you started there. Maybe next time you'll come back or whatever it is. But everything's on purpose and everything's perfect. It's
okay.
all information.
Wow. I'm interested in it, just listening to you guys talk about it and, to get familiar with the spirit. For me, ayahuasca came to me. I asked, again, for permission to partake in, ayahuasca. And she came to me when I thought I was ready. She told me no. So I had to wait another year and continue to do more internal work, self-reflection and all that. So do you need to connect first with Bufo before trying it or just go all in with it? What would y'all recommend?
Yeah, it's nice to connect in. I believe that as soon as you say you're going to do it, you kind of already connected in,
Okay.
just like the other plants too. But the spirit of Bufo is very strong. I feel like it's interesting that there's people that haven't even smoked marijuana before and they go for the Bufo,
Mhm.
like all in. And it's almost like something in their soul contract was with that medicine. And and especially because it's considered the strongest psychedelic on earth.
Okay.
So, yeah. But obviously, I think just going back to the respect of the earth and the respect of our interconnectedness with everyone and everything, that connecting in and offering, I always recommend an altar before you go into the
Okay.
ceremony so you can put your intentions and start to connect in with that spirit in that way. So yes.
Is there
Yes
a
and no.
certain invocation you say for someone who don't know? Is there a certain invocation that you say before connecting or partaking in any type of plant medicine?
Anything that comes from your heart, I think that's the better way. I think that's the way that we should all be looking at all of these practices is like, we all have our individual relationships with each of the spirits and the way that we relate to them, the medicines, the plants, trees, all of it. And the real like prayer and the real real prayer is being genuine, being authentic, and like being grateful, I think. So as long as it's those threes in whatever way it comes through, it's you're doing it right. Don't worry. That's what everyone always worries, including myself when I started. Like, am I doing this right? And I'd ask my teacher, they'd be like, just trust your intuition. I'd be like, oh, tell me what I want the answer.
Yeah,
But it's
and for
beautiful
somebody that's never done any type of plant medicine, would you tell them to start with psilocybin or cannabis first before gravitating toward Bufo, St. Padre?
every
I mean, what would you say, Matria? Or
as
just go all in?
I think that's an interesting question. Like Lauren mentioned before, she's had people, that she knows have never done cannabis and they went straight for Bufo. And I think it's what you're called to do. That's an interesting question. But one of the things I wanted to ask was like, what is the biggest shift you've seen in people that have experienced the medicine of Bufo? Like, can you give us any examples of people you know who've had big shifts?
oh gosh, such beautiful shifts. I've had I've I've had friends that have gone in and literally the next week have new cars, new girlfriends, new jobs. Like literally their whole life just is different. And that's interesting to watch. And then there's the people that some people I know their whole life fell apart. I think you mentioned that the whole life fell apart because they weren't living their truth. And they knew it too going in, and that's part of why they were going to sit with the medicine. And then they lose their job, they lose their friends, they lose their apartment, and but that's the acceptance, the non-attachment, the understanding. I people going in and really just Oh, I had this one friend that went in. She had been had a lot of sexual abuse when she was younger from a particular person, and then when she went into the ceremony, she had prepared for it for like several months because sometimes the medicine can kind of you can go back into an experience and
Mhm.
relive it. So she had worked for a while on that, and as soon as she went in, she was like right back in with that abuser, and she was able to tell the abuser no, and when she came back, that shifted the entire timeline for her. Like she felt better. She was 40 years old. This was happening when since she was like 9 to like 18. And all that life she'd been carrying it. She'd been going to therapy. She'd been doing all these things. And then she had that experience and it profoundly shifted her anxiety levels and the way that she interacted with her environment. So, you know, people who were literally so broke and didn't have like were living in really terrible conditions, and then the next week had three job offers, moved into a newer place. I mean, that fits along with the beginning, but it's just like, yeah, I've just seen so many people have their lives. So and can I comment on you, Maitreya? Yes. Watching my Treya, she was like literally one of those major timeline shifts of like in 1 year she changed her name. She turned whatever age she wants to be have turned. And then and then she changed her name, shifted into a different practice, did the medicine, started working over that year with the medicine. I swear she looks different than she did back then. She's shifted. I can totally, like she mentioned about what just being like more grounded in who you are. And I will say that for myself, like just feeling like also the edge of my emotions has been taken off. So it's like I don't have to, I can observe my emotions rather than be in the emotions, which of
Yes.
course, yeah, then that kind of also it takes so much anxiety out and living is easier because you're not like constantly like overwhelmed by everything. Yeah. So
Okay.
Well, thank you for sharing that about your reflection of me. Yeah, I feel like I have changed a lot, and I feel like I'm just much happier, and I'm not looking for outside approval anymore. I don't need that validation from outside of myself because I feel like I have what I need within me. And I think definitely Bufo is a part of that shift, along with my own practices as well
Mhm.
that I've been doing, working with coherence and so forth. But yeah, I feel like it's like, yeah, like I feel like it was a timeline shift. It's like, okay, Maitreya, you can go down this timeline, which isn't really serving you, or you can jump over here and you can actually be happier. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna jump over here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
jump over to
And
this.
even those practices, they could have come on into your field because of the shift in the timeline that allowed like more things that were nourishing to your soul to come through.
Absolutely.
It's a magnet. It's a huge manifester too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
just my last question I have for both of you. You repeatedly said quantum jump and timeline shift. What does that look like for somebody, for you to say that you quantum jump into 2028? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You quantum jump. So what does that look like in real time for somebody when you tell them, yeah, you just need to shift this timeline or you need to do this? What does that actually look like? And how does plant medicine play a role in that?
Great question. Hmm.
Do you want to answer it?
I'm still thinking. Are you ready to answer it? Go ahead.
I am. Because for me, I think a very simple way of explaining the timeline jump, it's like a lot simpler than we think, is like those choose your own adventure books. Did you ever read those as a kid? Like you'd
Yeah.
read them and then you get to a place and it's like, if you open the door, go to page 25. If you don't, go to page 26 or something like that. And then it takes you on a whole different storyline. That's what a timeline jump is. It's almost like you were maybe going down this direction and you shift like this. And the idea is that if you can feel that all of these timelines are happening all at once, you've heard the theory, this is the multidimensionality of us, that we have a million infinite versions of ourselves kind of working all at once. And our consciousness is right here, but we shifted into this timeline so that now it's here. And in theory, we're changing timelines at every second, but because we're kind of programmed to have this sort of like stillness and this like groundedness in this reality, things pretty much look the same. But when you start working with timeline jumping and really paying attention, you can notice little like kind of shifts around you that couldn't have happened that fast. Like one time I walked down this road all literally all every day, and I was walking down it, and then one day to the next, all of a sudden there was a staircase where there used to be like an electrical box. And yeah, okay, sure. People could have just changed that or whatever, but also did they change it because now we're on a new timeline? I don't know. So it's
Okay.
kind of something like that that's like actually it sounds a lot more mystical and crazy than actually it really is if you think about it in your own life. So that's my definition.
Okay.
Go.
I think what I notice with timeline jumps is that I might have been connected to certain people, and maybe we had like a very strong connection or friendship or whatever. And then I might make a different choice. And then suddenly I don't feel that connection anymore, which is really interesting. And then now in the new timeline, it's like that person, I have a vague memory, but there's no like attachment to that person anymore. And I'm like, well, what's happening? Why don't I feel this deep connection anymore? And so I think you start to notice how you move into a different kind of headspace or neutrality about the people that you thought you were really connected to, but now you're not in that timeline with them anymore. So you're not. It's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? Like, yeah, they exist. It's not that they don't exist, but they're not in your current timeline. So the association that
Yeah.
you had with them doesn't feel the same anymore. And that is what's been really tripping me out. It's
Mhm.
Mhm.
like, yeah, I know I had this deep friendship with that person at one point, but now we don't. And now I'm like, what? But I'm okay with it. Like, what happened? Maybe that's another example of how, when you jump a different timeline, even your connections with those people that you were in the former timeline completely change.
So
Well, I
even
would say,
do
oh,
y'all
sorry.
think recently that collectively we've done a shift and individually we've done a shift recently because I feel one for myself and I
Yeah.
notice my habits have changed. The people that I was close with and associated with no longer are in my immediate space anymore. So I've aligned to a different timeline that's better suited for this next phase of myself and me becoming more self-aware of myself. I'm more conscious of who I allow into my energy space. I'm not in the rescuing anymore or saving anymore. It's more about experiencing life. And when I'm setting myself up consciously for that, different themes and different people, different events, opportunities that's associated with this timeline is opening doors. The other version of me that was complacent and self-pleasing for everybody else, that was a different reality for her. So I see my shift collectively and individually. Do
Mhm.
you guys feel like that's your story too?
Absolutely. Yeah, and a big piece is the word that we've all used a couple times is non-attachment.
Mm,
Because if you're not attached to things always being the same, if you're not attached to that person always being in your life, if you're not attached to you always being the same, it becomes so much less sticky for you to shift through these. And that, I guess that's the metaphor too of going into the medicine and having a resistance is like you're still that means there's still that attachment a little bit to the reality that's here right now, and it's scary to detach from it.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
I would agree. Yeah.
And then
Wonderful.
also time. But that's a whole other story you guys should do some other time about time.
The time.
Time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out today, Lauren, to come on our show. It's been a fascinating and very stimulating
Mhm.
discussion today, and it's always such a pleasure to connect with you in this way. Thank you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
thank
learned
you.
so much about, Bufo, plant medicine, how to integrate it and how to just be in the moment of it and just surrender, not going in with every intention, the things that you want, just be present in it. So, thank you guys for explaining that. That's the intention to have.
Thanks for asking
Wonderful.
the questions. It's so fun. I love Bufo so much, and a lot. And just this work in general. So I appreciate you both bringing this to share with the world, so more and more people can find out.
Yes. And so please, everyone, please like, subscribe, and share. We're so happy to have you as part of our community rooted in spirit and more great episodes to come on medicines in the next couple of episodes. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Bye.